Well,
All
hello.
right, everybody.
Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, we didn't discuss who was going to open us up, so
Go.
we were both on our job at the same time. So,
Yeah, I'll take that.
but good evening, everyone. I was going to say good afternoon, Susan. But good evening, everybody. This is the Georgia Prison Watch podcast live show, whatever you want to call it. When we come on and we talk about the happenings in the Georgia Department of Corrections and just things that affect those incarcerated in Georgia. So thanks to everybody for coming on with us tonight. Sorry we're a little late. We actually thought about something at the end, close to 8:15 as we could. So I had to go and try to pull it up on the GDC's website so we could talk about it and try to be as factual as possible when we bring you this information. And Susan, you want to open up with any comments or any concerns or anything you got?
Yeah, I will start. I'm Susan Sparks Burns, and I'm the founder of They Have No Voice. If you are not a member of They Have No Voice and you'd like to be, you're certainly welcome to ask to join. We'll ask you 3 questions that are membership questions, and um, we're not prying into your life. We're trying to protect the people who are in the group. But our our purpose in They Have No Voice is a little bit different from Human and Civil Rights Coalition of Georgia, but in the long run, Brian and I are both working on the issue of suffering in Georgia's prisons. And it's as simple as that. Uh, we don't get very political on They Have No Voice, and we focus instead on conditions and treatment of the incarcerated here in this state. Um, but my background is business and industry, and I bring to the I guess one skill set I bring is I handle a lot of data, really comfortable with numbers and so forth. And what Brian and I were doing before we came online was talking about the trends in this data that we're seeing. Um, July, according to the mortality data from GDC, is going to be uh, less deaths than we thought, and kind of a different mix of deaths than we've seen. But Brian brought up right as we were coming to air, we are already ahead in August of the number of homicides that occurred in July, and we're barely halfway through the month. It's been disturbing to have so many homicides, and that the homicides don't happen in a vacuum. There's other violence going on as well, and we're not going to bring you news of something that we haven't confirmed. We almost always get burned when we do that. So any deaths that we speak of tonight are deaths that have been confirmed, and in some cases, our source is as good a source as could be on this information. So I hope this is of interest to you. I know as a mother of an incarcerated man, my greatest fear was that he would die in prison, and that did not happen. But I am involved in this today because of that fear that all all of us have if we've got loved ones who are in Georgia Department of Corrections. I never talk to anyone who doesn't have that fear. So with that, I just a little of what my um I guess expertise is with the numbers, and um, it's a good thing that I've got Brian to work with because he's more in your face about some things, and sometimes I will roll over and play dead. Um, but we're doing our best to bring you accurate information and even an analysis of the information whenever we have enough to tell you. So with that, Brian, what you got?
All right, so Susan said it best. She's and I joke with her a lot when what I'm about to say, but it's going into something. So, Susan's the nice one. I try to be. She's the saved and sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost one out of the two of us. So, I try to I try to punt and defer to her at times when just some foolishness or something is going on. And I said I wasn't going to address this, but I feel a need that I want to go ahead and address it. And Susan didn't mention it, but I'll go ahead and mention it. So there it was last week with the situation at Macon State Prison, where we actually was able to put out some information on exactly what took place between, I can't remember the guy's name that passed away in that his cellmate killed him at Macon State last week. I can't remember his name.
Kevin Lamar?
Maybe. Yeah, I'm sure that's it. Mm-hmm. But Susan had received some messages from, I would guess, some of the people that we mentioned in the post on Facebook. And, the messages, and I'm paraphrasing, but the messages pretty much just said that, we were slandering whoever we were talking about in the post, and also that they were going to sue us. So when I heard this, my first reaction was, I didn't want to hear about it. I didn't care. But I started to started thinking about it. And, so I looked up the word slander, and, for somebody to be slandered, what you are saying has to be untrue and defamatory in a defamatory statement. So, the information we put out was true. So I'm not worrying about your little lawsuit or, your threats of a lawsuit or whatever you said that you told Susan that you were going to do, and that we needed to stop talking about you. So you make a choice every day to come on this page. We don't go to your phone or to your computer or to your laptop and type in Human and Civil Rights Coalition or they have no voice. You come here on your own. So, the threats this week that Susan received, and just the foolishness with the slander, supposedly slander and stuff like that. We go through extensive steps to verify all of the information that we put out to the public. I mean, it's always you have to have the information verified, and you have to vet it, and you have to. There's a lot of stuff you have to do before you just able to post something on social media. So, we go through this, and, Susan will tell you all the time is, if I don't feel comfortable with something that, is we're thinking about putting out there, then we're not putting it out there because we just we can't verify it. So that's just something to think about. We like to be transparent, but we also like to get it right the first time. And the information that we put out there was spot on about the individuals, the lieutenant and the other officer at Macon State, just completely showing out. If I can use a word from Eric Mays, just completely showing out over there at Macon. And you'll see a video shortly of how they operate at Macon State. Never before seen video on just some of the stuff that they're doing, not only at Macon State, but there's also carrying over to other facilities, and they're using the same practices. So we're gonna get through that in a minute. But I think I'm glad I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. When it comes to the threats and threats of lawsuits against us and all that stuff, just miss me with that, because our information is always going to be factual, and if we can't get it verified, we're not putting it out there. So I just don't appreciate the fact that people go and decide that they want to threaten Susan. I mean, and they didn't come to the Human and Civil Rights page and threaten. They went to her, which is fine. But like I said, when you talk about us and say that we're putting stuff out there, then I'm gonna call your name again. And I might talk about you 3 or 4 or 5 times after that, after you threaten us. So, I know they're listening, because they said they listen.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, you come here and you talk about us one time, I might talk about your name. I might call your name 5 or 6 times the next time we talk about you. So like I said, but yeah, that was my little rant for tonight. I probably won't have another one. But Susan, you got anything you want to touch on with that?
No, I think what I'd like to do, if we've not talked about this, I'd like to give the names of those people that have died in the custody of Georgia Department of Correction in the last 2.5 weeks, because we don't want people to die and end up in the ground at Georgia State Prison, and no one remembered them or know them, or even know what happened to them. And tragically, we have an example in this list that the family does not know what happened, and they're going to have a hard time finding out what happened. But just going back to when this group of homicides started. The last 2 days of July, we had Lance Lampkin at Valdosta and Croissant Bostic, also at Valdosta. And then on also the last day of the month, a man whose last name is Thurman, and I don't know how to say his first name, but his last name was Thurman, died at Wheeler. And same day, I believe, Justin Tyler Smith died at Smith. Then we had Kevin Lamar about a week later, who died at Macon. And 2 days after him, Francisco Melgar Saldivar died at Hancock. And the same day, Christopher Clayton Sweat died at Valdosta. And the same day, Jeffrey Allen Harris died at Valdosta. And on the 14th, Quentin Mayo died at Smith. This is a stunning number of homicides. The number we had, according to GDC, in July was 2. And we have them on our list because of them being at the beginning of this tranche of homicides that we've seen this last 2.5 weeks. I don't want people to go unnoticed through this world. And the inhumanity demand that we are experiencing here, that may be what GDC, how they want to operate. But I believe that the humanity of people should be acknowledged. And these are all people who are loved by someone, will be missed by people. This next to the last man, Jeffrey Allen Harris, had been dead 2 days before his wife was contacted. And she still knows nothing. That the family had been trying to find him in the GDC system for 4 months. They had not been able to provide to put money on his books to check on him. They couldn't see him on the lookup, but he certainly did die at Valdosta State Prison last week. So,
right, and there was at Valdosta last week, and we're gonna get into this because we posted a video earlier late last week, which has about 400 and something thousand views on it of just the heat and people actually laying out in the day room floor underneath the fan, one fan that was supposed to keep everybody cool, the whole dorm cool. And I don't remember how many they have in those cell houses, but you had one fan that was supposed to keep everybody cool. And you saw on the video, you had people just sleeping and laying all out in the day room floors. And that just goes for one of the deaths actually last week at Valdosta State Prison was due to heat inhalation. Just fell out and passed away in the hole because it was over 100 degrees in the cell, and the guy passed away due to heat. So that was one of the deaths last week that we actually was able to confirm, and that's horrific in itself. You're already in prison, and then you're in the hole, and you pass out and die because it's 95, 100 degrees in one of those cells that doesn't have, it doesn't have any heat. Any circulation, whatsoever, no air circulation, anything like that. And, you pass out and you end up dying because of that. And
that was not an old man. That was a young man.
Yeah. And we're starting to see a lot of people passing out, people dying because of the heat, and this video that I'm going to play right here kind of just shows you how much they're dealing with the heat in these places and in these prisons. And I think I can get this to play. It's just a short video, but I'll go ahead and try to play it for you just so you guys can see, what they're dealing with when it comes to this heat. So give me a second.
Someone mentioned to me last week that, and I guess I knew it, but didn't really understand the significance of it, that very few of the cells that they call the hole have outlets in them, so that if they have a fan, they can't plug it into anything. So not only are they in a cell that has no ventilation, they can't even stir the air themselves with a little 8-inch plastic fan because of not having an outlet. So there are any number of ways that people end up suffering in the Department of Corrections. And
all right, so
okay,
let me try to stop this. I think I stopped it. Okay, here it is. All right, so I'm sorry, I've not shared screen much. So I think that was at Dodge State Prison where you had that guy just completely passed out because of the heat. So this is the kind of stuff that we're seeing right now when it comes to some of these deaths. And as I can say, we were able to confirm that one of the deaths last week at Valdosta was heat related. So that's kind of what some of these deaths are about, and some of these medical situations are about in some of these places that we're hearing about, just extreme heat. and there's no circulation. There's no AC. There's nothing but the little fans that they do bring in, and the fans that's on the wall if they're operational. So that's kind of what we're dealing with when it comes to that. Susan, you have something?
No, sir. Looking forward to your video.
We've already played the video. You were talking over it.
I'm sorry. Will you play it again, please?
I played it 5 times.
You go. Okay.
But yeah, I played it, and so I think everybody saw it. I was screen sharing, so I've never done that before. Okay. So, but yeah, so that's just kind of we didn't see the video. All right, well, hold on a second. Let me see how I can play it, because it was definitely playing here on my side. So hold on a second. Let me get the video again. They didn't see it. Okay, give me a second. Let me try.
You done passed out, man. It's extremely hot in here. This is my bunk mate y'all see on the floor right here. You done passed out, man. It's extremely hot in here.
And you are correct. That was
all right.
Dodge.
Did y'all see it, Susan?
Yes. Yes, that was Dodge.
Okay, yeah, that was Dodge State Prison. So I apologize. Like I said, it was playing, and you were talking, and I was like, so I guess it was mine. I guess it was on my end. So, but like I said, I've never used screen share. So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Susan.
If this were all it were, the deaths, that would be one thing. But just in the same period, we've had maggots in the food at Pulaski. They have the very next day, they got a new warden at Pulaski. That's Karen Flowers, who is coming to them from Lee. We've had 2 incidents of boil water advisories where no one provided potable water to the incarcerated people who were affected, 2 different prisons. And we've had we have an ADA dorm at Johnson D3 that has not had air conditioning yet this year. And I think one of the ways that it gets to be an ADA dorm is that it has air conditioning. But it's awfully hot. And next week, in fact, will be hotter than this is. And sadly, the young man who died a couple of days ago, 3 days ago, Quentin Mayo, someone sent me a note that they believe that he died over the ice machine, not over top of. I mean, in a altercation regarding the ice machine.
And we don't know if that's true. Now
I do not know that that's true. That was what was said, but this is the misery. Is it all comes back to the people in Georgia's prisons are miserable. They're hot, and then they're being given food to eat with maggots in it. Now, maggots are nothing except the pupa of flies. So you've got a fly infestation, and you end up with maggots that's what you got is flies.
Yeah.
And
So, and then when you have all of that, and then, we get reports this week of them actually using pepper spray and mace at Telfair State Prison to go in and, and spray a whole dorm when they're already locked down. There's no air circulation.
no,
There's nothing whatsoever. And then, we get reports of them going into a dorm at Telfair. And this isn't the first time that, we've learned about them going into Telfair and actually just emptying cans of mace out for the entire dorm. And in a second, I'm going to play something, and I kind of alluded to this in my opening when I talked about, some of this stuff just floats to other prisons because, Telfair has had a practice of doing this for a few months now. And, they actually had a death just 3 or 4 months ago of a guy that who was on the tier program who actually passed away because they emptied a can of pepper spray in his cell, and it actually ended up killing him. And then what does the GDC do? They list his death on the mortality report as accidental.
Clifford Bagley Jr.
So, this is a practice that they're doing now. And I kind of want to show you this video to kind of give you the evidence. And, there's a saying that the proof is always in the pudding on what they're doing. And, they're going in these holes and in these dorms, and they're not taking anybody out of the cell. They're opening up the door flap. They're not opening up the door. They're opening up the door flap, or they're actually spraying mace underneath the door. And then they're not rendering any type of aid. They're not calling medical and having the people checked out, or they're not doing anything. And, we're going to talk about it on the other side of this video. And it's not very long, but I want you to kind of watch this video because this was very recent, maybe even within the last couple days from Macon State Prison. And then you'll be able to see the practices that they're doing all over the state when it comes to this pepper spray. But let me try to see if I can pull this video up. If you give me 1 second. All right, here we go.
Boy, this shit so crazy, bro. They just sprayed on this man room with spray. Bro, these niggas can't even breathe, bro. Look at the unit manager, bro. You feel me? This shit is crazy. Trying to be flooded, no light, no power. Nobody give a fuck about no nigga ass, bro. Look at these folks, they don't give a fuck. Shit crazy.
So, Susan, and if you pay close attention to that video at the 36-second mark, you actually see the unit manager after she sprayed somebody in a cell and they're beating on the door. Go back and watch it. Don't take my word for it. But at the 36-second mark, he's beating on the door, and you can actually see the can of pepper spray in her hand. And she asks him, why is he beating on her door? So this is the type of stuff that's going on in these places when it comes to this pepper spray stuff. And, it's a real deal. We heard, a few months ago where Jacob Beasley at Smith State Prison went in the dorm and just emptied cans of pepper spray. As I said, there was the incident a few months ago at Telfair, where they went into the tier program and empty cans of mace. So, this is happening. This is a real thing that's happening right now. And then, to add insult to injury, they have no circulation, they have no air, and they're going into these dorms and going into these cells and just emptying cans of mace. So, video doesn't lie. So go ahead, Susan.
No, and we can go back to Washington State Prison. I believe January of 2022. David Melton, 25-year-old man, was he was being dragged up the walk one morning around 7 in, and there were dozens of witnesses to this. And he was screaming to everybody, "They're going to kill me! They're going to kill me!" 2 hours later, he was dead, and he was covered with pepper spray and was in the shower, locked in the shower in the hall. So,
Right, and that one was that death was listed as a suicide.
yes, this isn't new, and it isn't going to get less deadly. We've got a population of 10,000 people working at the Georgia Department of Corrections who apparently don't see the people in their care as human beings. There's not a circumstance where I would pepper spray anyone or any living thing. And yet this is done as if it's not going to hurt these people, and then they're not given any opportunity to be decontaminated.
No, and then the pepper spray issues, and then another issue that we've learned about, and we kind of got it confirmed as well. And this is kind of big, and we haven't posted anything about this, but at Smith State Prison, and I don't think I can pull it up. I might can, but I don't know if I can. But Susan can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it was Smith State Prison just last week. An officer escorted a person to the shower, and laying in wait in one of the other showers was someone who decided that he wanted to stab one of the person that she had just took out of their cell and put in the shower. He was laying in wait and actually stabbed him. And I think he had to leave by life flight. And I don't know if he passed away. I can't remember.
He's in ICU now.
Right. So, he's in ICU. So, you got all of this stuff going on. If you listen to our last podcast, then, you kind of got a sense from the last one of the officers that was on, is, they're putting these people in these places, with just the minimum training as possible. And, I don't know the GDC's SOP when it comes to escorting someone to the shower, but I'm pretty much sure it's not just one officer is supposed to be escorting one person to the shower.
No, and in this case, the man who had been taken from his cell was in cuffs.
Yeah.
And the other man was hiding in the shower, and when the officer put the man who was in cuffs in there, she apparently I don't know if she got the cuffs off of him. He was still in cuffs when he was stabbed.
Right.
But another man was lying in wait.
Yeah, lying in wait in the other spare shower, and that was one of the life flights that we saw out of Smith State Prison, last week, and there was a few, and I can't understand, Susan, how what is it, 6 or 7 deaths now? I think it's 6.
Yes.
6 deaths under Jacob Beasley since he took over as warden at Smith State Prison.
6
And
homicides.
yeah, 6. So, I can't understand at what point is he deemed incompetent to keep his job as warden at Smith State Prison. Like, what else has to go on? How many more life flights do we have to have at Smith State Prison before it's figured out that Jacob Beasley is just not the right person for that place? I mean, he had no warden experience. I think he was an interim warden very briefly at Valdosta.
Yeah.
But how much more proof has to be written on the wall that he's not competent enough to be a warden at one of the the most dangerous prisons in Georgia? I don't know what else, and and it almost has me wondering is how competent is Tyrone Oliver's decision-making skills to actually keep him in that position. And, all of this stuff is going on. I mean, the guy had a death his second day as the warden of Smith State Prison. The second day he had a death. And, his actions since then, since he took over, has been completely troubling. I mean, just going into the dorms and spraying mace and, just all of the stuff and the craziness and the carrying on that he's doing around there, is actually a problem because, that kind of stuff makes stuff get out of control the way he goes around and he carries himself at Smith. And, there's no doubt in my mind is that, he's one of the major problems that's going on at Smith.
I would phrase it this way. As long as he's in that role, they cannot fix the problems that are there.
No.
He is an impediment clearly to fixing them. Those 6 deaths have happened in a matter of 4 months. So this isn't like the whole year. This is 4 months. And as Brian said, when does this reach a point where you say, there's an expression here in the South, are you going to cut bait? Well, at some point you need to do that. And I'm not saying Beasley himself is the problem. I'm saying he is absolutely over his head when it comes to Smith State Prison.
Yeah, well, I think he's half of the problem. So.
Yeah. Well, if he's going to be a warden, he needs to be the warden at Shady Rest or someplace that's not life and death every single day. We follow the Georgia Virtue page because it has real-time information on it about the life flights out of Smith.
Well, hold on now. We can't mention that name.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't say it
without putting something on the screen to lead to their website. So.
Okay. By all means, do that. But they did publish that Smith had 4 life flights in 4 days last week. Wow. And
you know what? Something that we need to do, and we'll do it too. Just something just came to mind. We need to look at the cost of those life flights.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that cost is carried by the citizens of Tatnall County.
Yes. But, that would be something interesting. And I think even the people of Tatnall County would want to know how much are these life flights costing them every time they come to Smith State Prison. And we know Smith State Prison does not mind dialing 911.
No, 31 times.
If you haven't looked at our Facebook page from, just 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, and listened to all of the 911 calls from Smith State Prison in July. I mean, it almost would appear that they would call 911 just if they saw a cat run across the parking lot. They have no trouble calling 911. And it almost makes me think as well as that, they're doing more stuff on the outside of the prison, and instead of, monitoring the inside where all of this violence and all of this killing is going on, they're too busy looking up in the sky.
Yeah. Because of the calls, when you listen to them, they are absolutely giddy calling in to say, we think we heard a drone. Can y'all come out and check it, please? Wow. I'm a little old lady in a neighborhood. That's like me. I would call the cops because I think I saw a prowler out in the yard. Well, y'all are the biggest law enforcement agency in the state of Georgia, and you're calling for help because you think you heard a drone?
Yeah, I think only out of all of those drone calls, I think only maybe one or two had actually dropped something. Well, maybe two.
Well, and then I think the first of this month was when Jacob Beasley was credited on the GDC Facebook as having thwarted the gigantic drop that included the two handguns.
Yeah. Yeah, the two handguns that was just on that the two guys was carrying.
Yeah.
When they caught him, and they put those two handguns in the picture to make it appear as though they were trying to sneak those handguns into the prison.
That's people are scared enough of what's going on at that facility, specifically at that facility, that it's inflammatory on the part of GDC to stage those photos with these great big, one was a .357 Magnum. I mean, that's not a little gun. It won't fit in your purse. So, and there was, when you read the actual report on it, those handguns were not bound for the prison.
No.
But it was made to appear through the photograph that these were contraband, and that we're not stupid. We understand that if there are guns that do get into the prisons, that's a security problem beyond anything we've seen. And we know that there are some attempts to get parts of guns, shall we say, into the prisons. But why scare people when it just simply wasn't the case?
Well, because they're the shady bunch.
Well, I guess that's it.
They like to stroke their own ego when it comes to stuff like that. If you notice something too, Susan, their only bit of somewhat transparency is about the contraband that comes into the facility.
Yes.
That's about all of that they can be credited with having a little bit of transparency about, but I'll be honest with you, I kind of don't care about the contraband that they find, because, they did find that, but just imagine what they didn't catch. Yeah. Right. Just imagine all of this, that stuff that they didn't catch, that, they're bragging about, a football full of tobacco. Like, really?
Yeah.
But we found at Baldwin State Prison, we saw somebody on the perimeter line, and we found what they had, and they had 2 footballs full of tobacco.
Good job, GDC.
Like, when did I saw that was a couple months ago, and I'm like, okay, so when did tobacco become illegal?
As long as it hasn't crossed the guard line, it isn't.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of stuff that they put out. And, there was one press release that they put out, a couple of weeks ago that they deleted because they were getting so much they were getting so much pushback on social media about it that they actually went and deleted that one because they weren't getting their back slapping that they thought they were going to get by, the hooray people, good job and all this stuff that you see on these posts when they find something.
Pardon me.
So that's just kind of what they do. But that's the only part of the transparency right now that we're seeing out of the GDC when it comes to this contraband stuff. It's never anything about the staff that they're catching from bringing contraband in, or one of the biggest things to me is the deaths. They can't even be transparent enough with the public on a suicide or on a homicide. It's the only thing that they care about is the actual contraband that's actually going into these places. I don't know when was the last time, Susan, maybe when they actually issued a press release on a death that occurred at a facility.
It has, I believe it's probably been months. I may be wrong about that, but until May of 2020, every death that was not by natural causes was acknowledged in a press release. And to me, that seems appropriate. They're going to do it when they they're going to do a press release when they have an execution, because they proudly tell what the last meal consisted of. And they certainly should do a press release when there is an accident, but they do not do that any longer. And some of the accidents are, we had one in 2022, an older man, for some reason, decided, I believe he's in his 60s, decided to show the young guys that he could still do a backflip, and he broke his neck. Actually, that's pretty, that probably wouldn't have happened had there been staff present. I mean, that actually could have been prevented. And okay, they call that an accident. He certainly didn't intend to kill himself. But GDC doesn't acknowledge any of that.
Well, and then it's just like a couple months ago. Where there was the accident in the actual warehouse. And I can't remember what facility it was at, but I mean, this was just 90 days ago, maybe a little more than 90 days ago, where the inmate was out in the actual prison warehouse. He was on detail, and was smushed by a piece of equipment and died. But you didn't see any of that, and you wouldn't knew about it. And I would have to go back and find out actually which facility it was at, because that was pretty major. And like I said, that was just a little bit more than 90 days ago when that accident happened. And that was something that should have been put out to the public, because that was a major accident. Another thing, we're not all just completely just gospel, but we're notifying the public of what's going on. And Susan knows about this one. There was no press release when the two store employees was caught red-handed in the store having sex with the inmates.
Nope.
And this just happened like 90, what was it? Maybe 90 days ago, Susan?
It may even be a little longer than that, but yeah, it happened.
Yeah, it definitely happened. And one of the crazy things about it is that should I stop, or should I just go into the deep?
I think you're already at the end of the diving board. Go ahead and jump.
Well, and the two store ladies, they were in the store having. You said go for it?
Yeah.
They were in the store having an orgy in the store, in the inmate store. and got caught by one of the deputy wardens. Walked in on two store ladies and two inmates having a field day in the store. No press release about that either. So,
I so like, all right, we've all had our little chuckle there. Just, I'm just glad I wasn't called at some of the things I've done. But there wouldn't have been a press release had it been.
well, I mean,
So,
but the moral of the story is the moral of the story is when you do that, and those two ladies was charged, right? They were charged with some very serious crimes. I don't know. I thought last time I looked, they were like, charged with some major crimes after that. But the point is that stuff happens, and that's something that would be newsworthy, for a lot of these news organizations.
yeah.
But
So we've got a good question on the screen right now. That asks, if they're so short-staffed, why can't the National Guard get involved until things get staffed up or straightened out? Great question. In Georgia, guess who the National Guard reports to? Governor Kemp. And Governor Kemp, if he were to call up the National Guard, which he could do with a signature on a document and a phone call, he could do it just that fast. If he were to call them, he would be acknowledging that there are problems in Georgia Department of Corrections. If you're joining us every week listening to this, you are pretty aware that there are problems. There's 48,000 incarcerated people in the state of Georgia, and nobody's comfortable. No one's happy. No one's getting their no one's well. They've got poor medical treatment, poor food, a lack of food, all sorts of conditions like the unbearable heat, the lack of ventilation, conditions that make them miserable. They are in misery. And yet some of these things, there are parts of this that could be helped. This gross understaffing is far worse than it was at the beginning of COVID. At the beginning of COVID, there were vacancies running about 35%, which is still quite a lot. But the vacancies now are running closer to 70%. Now, I am not referring to people that work in the office and answer the phone and that sort of thing. I'm talking about the officers. But it flows out over everything. If you don't have officers, then the counselors aren't going to go to the hole with and see their mental health caseloads or their people who want to file grievances. If you don't have people to escort them, it just then you don't have classes, or the classes end up being taught by people who are affiliated. Sometimes and then the ability to gather as a class is used as something else as well. Sort of part of how contraband moves around a prison. But why can we not have the National Guard? In Florida, Ron DeSantis did do that. He called up 300 people. Well, Florida Department of Corrections has 95 prisons. That's a lot. He called up 300 of it. Those 300 were only sent to 7 prisons. So it wasn't like there was 1 or 2 spread out at each of the 95 prisons. They sent them to the ones that had the most violence, the most problems, the most deaths, in order to relieve the officers who were working. The officers, I haven't seen numbers for this year, but over the last 2 years, they're making a lot of overtime. And it's overtime that they don't necessarily want because it's so much. It's one thing to work, an extra shift during a week, but when you don't get relieved until 15, 18 hours after getting there, and you've got to fill in for people who don't show up, this bureaucracy has accepted as normal less and less and less officers. We just saw a video last week of 3 young men. They were in a control booth. Where was that, Brian?
Rogers.
Sure was. And they were in there just having a fine time, acting the fool, and they're going to post it on Facebook, and all that happened. But that shouldn't ever be able to happen. But it did. And, we're seeing a message there that GDC has given up, has abdicated, so to speak, responsibility for staffing these prisons. It's their responsibility. But what we keep reading is GDC is going to be at a job fair. This same places they go all the time. I think they do 130 or so a year. But clearly they're losing ground on bringing people in. You can't make up the deficit of 70% vacancies by just doing what's normal. Something audacious has to happen. Big steps. The big step to me would be take your finger out of the dike that is pardons and paroles in Georgia and send the people who are eligible to be gone. Send them home. If they mess up, they'll come back. If they don't mess up, they and their families can have a great life. But what we have now, our prisons literally are not overcrowded. They are slightly under capacity. They're slightly under capacity, but they're not overcrowded. What they are, though, is grossly understaffed. And while those staff members can't necessarily prevent everything, they can discourage things. By having a presence, they can discourage a lot of the things that go on now that go unchecked. We were just talking about the 2 videos that we saw from GDCP Jackson a couple of months ago that were just horrendous stabbing events. And we heard from 2 guys who were each doing their 5th bid in prison. They'd been to Jackson a few times already, had never seen or experienced anything like that. And it had everything to do with no officers. The people who perpetrated the worst of those 2 events sort of marched down the hall to the cell where they were going to attack the guy. And they felt free to do that. They didn't sneak. Anyway, so
Yep.
Can we have the National Guard? There certainly is a place for them. And right now we've got Trey Kilpatrick's cell phone on the screen. He's the chief of staff for Governor Kemp. Tell Mr. Kilpatrick what you think. They've heard from me. So tell them what you think. We've got to have, something has to change. Something has to change. We have a human rights bloodbath going on in the state of Georgia in our prisons. It makes me ashamed of what's happening here in this state. It's not happening in other states. There are some other states with horrid problems. But the extent, and in particular the lack of staffing, and then the complete lack of transparency, it's hard to to say that anything is right when so much is wrong. There may be things that are right, but daggone, with people dying at this rate, we can't see anything that's going right.
Yeah, I'm listening. You can keep talking. I found something that I always say, and we're getting ready to get off here. We promise, but I got to find something and I got to put it on the screen. But you're absolutely right, Susan. Let me say this. I've said it 100 times on this show, and I'll continue to say it. The Georgia Department of Corrections is always going to have a staff shortage. No one wants to work in a prison. Nobody is going to go and work in a prison. And I use the example all the time is you have a small town like Wilcox County, which is 3,400 population. Who's going to go to Wilcox County in a little town where there's a hole in the wall, nothing, and work at Wilcox State Prison? Nobody. Who's going to go to Washington County and work in the new fancy prison that they're building? Nobody. So this is just something that unfortunately is just here to stay, and they've already proven that they can't do anything about it, and it's just unfortunately going to get bad. And to go back to the question that was on the screen, and when I saw that, my immediate reaction was Kemp has to call. I'm sorry, hold on a second. Kemp has to call these people in. I'm trying to find something to try to put on the screen. So hold on a second.
I'm feeling better about when I goof up now.
But Kemp has to be the one to call these people in, to call the National Guard in. And, he's already demonstrated to us that he just doesn't care about what's happening in the prisons. And,
when the DOJ announced that they were opening the investigation into Fulton County Jail, when they announced that, the sheriff of Fulton County came back immediately and said, we need to be looked at, and furthermore, here are the steps we've taken already. And that included going to a corrections staffing agency, and they already had hired like 90 people through the staffing agency before they made the announcement that, this was within a day of the DOJ saying they were opening an investigation into Fulton County Jail.
Yeah.
They at least acknowledged the problem and did something about it without being made kicking and screaming, made to do it. And that is the direction we're headed with the Georgia Department of Corrections. At some point, this DOJ investigation will go to litigation. That's the direction it goes. It's a process. It's a slow process, but it will drive change. It'd be far, far less expensive to acknowledge the problem and fix it. They're going to be made to fix it anyway. How many people have to die in the meantime? Because of what? Nothing else is going to change until they're made to. We see it week after week. The stories we're bringing y'all each week are worse every week. They aren't better.
Well, and I have to clean this one up. And you tried to get me out. You tried to get out of it when I was talking about the Macon State store information. But I was so quiet because I had to just go find it and bring it to people, because I don't want them to say that we're lying and we're making stuff up. Because they do say that stuff, Susan. You see it all the time. You know that they say we make all this stuff up. So I just had to go find. Huh?
What have
I
you got to show us?
I just have to find it. I got to go see if I can find it. So here it is. Here's the incident report. Let me take this off the screen, and we're getting out of here. We're gonna get out of here on this one. Let me take this off the screen. Give me 1 second. Would you like to read it?
I'm afraid that all right, I guess I would. Okay, 12/16/22. So we're 8 months ago. Staff members Tammy Jordan and Jasmine Majors were witnessed in the store area, involved in several inappropriate incidents with offenders James Hall and Dedrick Jackson. At 13:02 hours, 1 p.m. in the daytime, staff members Jordan and Majors were arrested by the Montezuma Police Department with pending charges for sexual assault.
So we don't make stuff up. And, this is something that we didn't even share now. Susan knew about it, but, this was stuff that we didn't even share because some of it was just so graphic. But, so
sometimes it's tawdry to put stuff like that up. But yes, you had the proof.
Yeah. So, and that just goes to say, we have the information to back up whatever the heck we say. It's just some stuff that we just can't put out there, and we just choose not to put out there. But I just didn't want to be accused of making that situation up because it actually happened.
We don't have to make this up. It's a ready-made show every week.
That's right. All right, Susan, anything you want to add or share with everybody before we get off here?
No, on that note, I'm ready to go. Folks, this is a serious issue. We know it is, and you know it is. We want to thank those who have been donating to the litigation fund. These things are moving forward. We'd like to ask you again, please share this video. Brian will have it up on YouTube shortly, and we can share from there real easily from YouTube just by copying from the whatever it's called at the top of the page. You can fill in for me there, Brian, with whatever that is. But anyways,
it's just the video will be up on YouTube, and you can share it to platforms. And then we're also working on, which just requires a little bit more editing. It's actually putting all of our shows and podcasts on Spotify. That way, people can just download Spotify. Spotify is used to be. Spotify now is something, I can't remember what it used to be. But we're in the process of putting our podcast on Spotify, however you say it, Spotify.
Yeah.
And that way you can just download the app, and if you listen to a lot of podcasts, then you'll be able to listen to this, without even having to go to Facebook or YouTube. You can just get it where you get all of your podcasts from. So we're in the process of working on that. But in the meantime, you can always go to our YouTube channel, Human and Civil Rights Coalition, or you can just continue to watch it on Facebook. It's a little easier if you want to go back and watch it on YouTube, because you can actually skip and pause, and you can actually close out and go do something else and still hear it. On Facebook, you have to stay in Facebook and watch it or listen the whole time. So, but yeah, we got a couple of things that we're working on, and we're going to try to expand this podcast out a little bit more. The only thing about it is I just hate editing. So, Susan, do you want to give them an update on where we are as far as fundraising?
Yes, I do. We are doing really well. We were commiserating at the beginning, and we don't know if we'll get this, but we are now, as of today, at $496. And we've already explained that we will have a $350 charge to file twice, so that's $700. We spent right at $100 to send the certified letters. part of that on all the supplies, and then the rest for the certified mail. And we have a few odds and ends of things that we'll have to pay for along the way. So rather than trying to get 1,000, we're thinking we might need something in the range of 1,200 to 15, but we're going to use every dime of it for this. This isn't a fund for Susan Sparks Burns or Brian Randolph.
No, I wish.
Yeah, well, this is all we're trying to do here is the right thing. And we're glad that you're on board with us trying to do it. Together we can do this and it not be misery for everyone involved. We can do this. We actually have a village here. So thank you all for joining us and listening, for your contributions on the litigation fund, as well as your contributions during the podcast itself. We're loving to see your comments and the engagement that you have in this. This is your podcast.
All right. Yeah, the human and civil rights, we've actually gone over 41,000 on Facebook. So
amazing.
So, yeah, we definitely appreciate each and every one of you. As we said, or as Susan said, please share this. Share it. Let's get it out there. Let's get more people engaged and having a difficult conversation. This is what those podcasts are about. This is what the podcast is about. It's just to have a difficult conversation on a crisis that's going on, in our state. And it's a crisis. It's definitely a crisis when you have, Georgia's leading probably the country in deaths per week in prisons. So that's a crisis. And, this is what this podcast is about, is to talk about the crisis that's going on and, keeping everybody informed and keeping everybody up on exactly what's going on. So, we couldn't do it without all of you. We see your comments, we see your shares, we see your likes and everything like that. So, we definitely appreciate each and every one of you for coming on with us tonight. And, since we started these, actually, it's been a great success. I would say, Susan. So, we're definitely appreciative of that. So
yeah, apparently we're going to have endless amounts of information to share, because every week it's unimaginable.
Yeah, it's something else. So, hey, we're gonna get off here. We're already 13 minutes over, so we appreciate everybody coming in tonight, and have a great weekend. And we will see everybody back next Thursday night, unless something happens that we need to get out or share before then. We'll be back before then. But until next week, we thank everybody for joining us tonight, and have a good and safe weekend.
Thanks, folks.